Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Jections. I'm your host, Andrew. We've got the entire crew back today. Miko, Irfan, and Jay. Miko, what's going on, man?
Doing good. Great results recently. So, doing well.
Irfan, what's up?
Just like Miko, doing well. Good results. Feels good to be at the top of the table, and a little concerned about Pavard, but overall, doing pretty well.
Jay, welcome back. How are you coping with, first blowing a 2-0 lead and then, dropping points to Udinese yesterday?
Overall, really good. Sorry, I missed last week. I was out with COVID in addition to some scheduling issues, but great results. I mean, Milan lost, Arsenal lost. It was a perfect weekend of football.
I want to start with the Atalanta match, which was a fantastic game. Like, if you're a neutral watching, I thought it was fun. It was attacking. Both teams tried to win the match. Like, I just thought it was a great game of football. But honestly, we struggled in the first half quite a bit, where it really felt like Atalanta had the better of the chances for the first, 39 minutes of the match up until the penalty. So, Miko, what did you think of the first, 40 minutes of the first half up until the penalty? Were you concerned about the run of play, or were you confident in the defense?
Well, unfortunately, I didn't watch the match live, so I knew the results when I started watching the match. But yeah, it was pretty bad. We didn't have like much going on in the first half or the first 40 minutes. So I could guess people were a bit worried watching that stuff, because that wasn't good. We couldn't get the ball to Atalanta box at all. I don't remember. Did we do like, our attack was really inept in those first 40 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we had a shot on goal in the first 40 minutes or so. It honestly felt a bit like that game where, we went to Bergamo and was it Musso Barrow had like so many chances in the first half and just couldn't bury them. Like, it wasn't feeling great. And then of course it all changes in a blink of an eye with, well, I guess before we talk about the goal, let's talk about the Pavard injury. Irfan, you mentioned in the recap, like, what's your concern level right now with Pavard?
Yeah, it's pretty high. I mean, it looked really bad. I think initial reports were, or I think Inzaghi said after the match that his kneecap popped out and they popped it back in, and he seemed to be limping around afterwards, celebrating and things like that. So, I'm hoping it's not that bad, but I think initial reports said that he'll be out at least through the end of the year. So another, maybe 6 to 8 weeks, something like that. So I think it's going to be challenging when we're going to be playing, 3 matches a week, essentially, or at least twice a week. It's going to be hard for us. But I think, in a way, it might also be a little bit of a blessing in disguise, in the sense that, hopefully he'll miss the next international break, and he'll just be able to kind of rest. And then whenever he does come back, which will probably be after the group stage is done, then he'll be healthy and fit and ready to go. So it might be a little bit of a boost, but it's going to be a little bit of a struggle because we have a pretty tough stretch right now. But Darmian filled in really well. I thought he played really, really well. It's just going to be challenging to balance the workload, really.
Yeah, it's just a brutal injury when you feel like Pavard was really starting to come into his own and he had actually clamped down a starting spot, to lose it so soon. It really does hurt.
They're saying it's a sprain to the knee. So, that rules out anything more serious, like a rupture or ligament tear or anything like that. So at this point, unfortunately, a knee sprain is the best we can hope for. But yeah, just a very inopportune injury. to be honest, I guess we're more on the lucky side of things where we haven't had any major players have any significant time off due to injury. So it was our turn to get a little bit of bad luck. And as Irfan mentioned, I thought Damian was fantastic, one of the big catalysts to actually achieving the result. He was the one who obviously won the penalty, made that great run to follow Çalhanoğlu's pass in. And then when the team started, and we'll get to this, but when the team started doing its classic Inter meltdown shit, he was one of the few that kind of showed a lot of fire and didn't let the game completely slide down to the, to the doldrums where it was heading. So Damian is a strong contender for man of the match. That said, obviously it'll be great if we can get Pavard back as soon as possible. But it also kind of opens up another angle, which is Cuadrado, man. Like we, with Damian now having to play as right centre back with Pavard out for the foreseeable future, there's less rotation options for Dumfries. And I thought Dumfries was dismal yesterday. He was just all over the shop. He was like ragdolling around, and Dumfries has this kind of way of playing where when he gets tired, his technique, which is already, modest at best, just becomes comical. It's like his touches are like 3 meters long. His shots are just wild, and he keeps it's like he has no control over his body sometimes. He has like the turning circle of a big semi-trailer. It's like he has difficulties slowing his momentum and things like this when he gets tired. So it's almost funny if it's not, if it wasn't so concerning. But yeah, that Pavard injury, I think, has hurt us in more ways than one.
Yeah, and keep in mind, like, when you go into a match, Inzaghi will tell someone, like, hey, I'm expecting 60 minutes out of you. So surely he went into this thing, told Dumfries, plan to play 60 to 65 minutes. And then in the 30th minute, when he has to switch gears and he's pretty much forced to play 90 minutes now, I guess I'm not surprised he got tired and became a little useless towards the end of the match. Miko, break down the penalty for me. Since you have the hindsight of watching it, not live. What did you think? Clear penalty?
Well, first of all, the Çalhanoğlu's pass to the true pass, that was magnificent. Like that was through like many players, and was it a bit too, almost a bit too strong, but Darmian got a piece of it. And about the actual foul, I think that is a penalty and a clear foul in current rules, but that's at the same time, that's like, in my mind, that's really stupid that it's a penalty, because there's no way Darmian can do anything with the ball. But at the same time, it is a foul because Musso is incredibly stupid in that play. I don't understand why he rushes like that, because he didn't get the ball and he just completely trips Darmian down. So I think, yes, that is a penalty, but it's more of a critique to the current rules in my side, that shouldn't be a penalty, because there wouldn't be anything even if Musso didn't. Well, actually, kind of. If Musso didn't bring himself there at all, of course, Darmian could have got the ball. But yeah, that's a. I don't know. It's a clear foul, but
yeah, it's one of those that are a penalty within the rules of the game, but the rules themselves are a bit kind of
Yeah, it's a bit stupid in a way, because there's not a clear scoring chance or anything.
Speaking of fouls, he's there. What do we think about Atalanta's goal? The one, obviously, the controversy being around DiMarco being somewhat pulled back by Lookman from behind, and then Lookman obviously squaring the ball for Skamaka to tap in. I, in moments like this, I tend to, I guess, err on the side of whatever the opposite of caution is, where I go with the outrage of the moment, right? Rather than, oh, it's a foul and all that kind of stuff. I'm more like, what the hell was DeMarco thinking there? Like, how stupid can you possibly be? You've got Ademola Lookman behind you, he's fouling you, and instead of just, he could have passed it to Sommer, but instead of taking some action, he's just like really kind of just pathetically, casually leading back on, oh look, I'm being fouled, guys, come on ref, blow the whistle, look, I'm getting fouled. And when it doesn't happen, you look like a complete jackass, right? So right now definitely more on the side of, I think the blame is on us rather than the ref, because you can't automatically expect a foul there, even if, again, Lookman is, arguably kind of softly fouling him, pulling him with his arms, and you can see from the replay, from the images, there's definitely, he's using his arms to kind of shove DeMarco aside. But again, I always say, you got to consider like the real amount of force applied there, and the real amount of force applied by Lookman is so low that, again, one of those things that I just mentioned with Miko's comments on the penalty, it probably is a foul in the to the rules of the game, but the rules of the game are not perfect, and in a way I'm kind of glad that it wasn't called a foul, because I don't think those things should be called fouls. But yeah, I'm very upset about how that goal came about, and equally upset about the reaction that followed. We could feel the team was just not going to really, respond in any way to that goal, and it felt like we were somewhat at Atalanta's mercy for the rest of the game. As I mentioned before, it was only a couple of guys like Darmian who really kind of stood up to that changing tide in mood, and he deserves all the credit in the world for that. But yeah, the rest of the team, man, that was really poor. That was some bad stuff, I reckon.
Yeah, okay, so starting with the penalty, I agree. Like, it's kind of dumb because Musso comes out, he slides on a wet pitch, and by the time he gets there, Darmian has already released the ball, and it has no chance of going anywhere. Like, it's a dead play. And if the same thing happens and Musso doesn't come sliding in, it's a goal kick, right? Obviously, the argument is that Darmian doesn't lose the ball if Musso isn't approaching him. But it is, it's tough to watch on replay and be like, clear goal-scoring opportunity when the ball's been released and is going nowhere, like before contact is even made. Maybe if the contact had been initiated and then he had, sent the ball wayward, I'd kind of vibe with it a little bit more. But because he hadn't even made contact yet, and the ball was already off Darmian's foot, like, I agree. Like, it's definitely a penalty. Like, there's no disputing that. But like, if that happened to us, you'd be a little furious on the inside, but mostly just mad at, Sommer for just a complete brain dead decision, which that was from Musso. For the Lookman foul, that's kind of like the D'Ambrosio special, right? Like, you turn around, you kind of have your back to the attacking player, you go down easily, and you expect to get a free kick. And Lookman didn't foul DeMarco according to the referee, and as a result is set up an easy chance for one of the best finishers on the planet. It's once again, I blame DeMarco more than the referee for that, because DeMarco you could control. Like, there was an easier path out of that situation than the one DeMarco chose, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so I mean, going to the penalties again, on the Musso one, like you all mentioned, it doesn't matter really. I think if it was a goal scoring opportunity, I mean, it was a foul in the box. Like, they call these penalties like when the ball's nowhere near a player and he gets fouled. So really it just, technically it's a penalty. And we have like been called for that where the player releases the ball and then we foul that player and then it gets called a penalty, and it's like completely infuriating. But it is technically the rule. So I think I agree on all that you guys are saying on that front. On the DeMarco one, like, yeah, I blame DeMarco ultimately, but that's a foul 99.9% of the time. It's called almost every time. The only thing he didn't do, which, like you said, D'Ambrosio is really good at doing, and Bastoni does this like 8 times a game, is like they fall over and they like fall on the ball. And so then the ref like literally has no choice but to like, blow the whistle. Now, I guess that's risky if you fall on the ball in the box. I don't really remember if he was in the box or not, but if you fall on the ball in the box, and like, you could be called for like a handball or something. But like I think that makes the call a lot harder for the ref. Like he's not going to call, a foul where you fell and you touched the ball to be a penalty. Like it's just almost impossible to call that. So DeMarco just needs to get a little bit smarter. If he's going for that, then he needs to sell it the right way and actually fall and deflect the ball or just like fall over it the way Bastoni does like 8 times a game. Um, but then I don't Jay, I think you're being a little harsh on the reaction afterwards. Like I agree, we didn't respond that well, but that call or no call completely changed the match. I mean, before that, Atalanta was still attacking and there was good two-way kind of football going on, but we looked pretty much in control. That Lautaro goal, I think, really took the steam out of Atalanta, and then they were just gifted this chance. And yeah, every minute after that was just so tough because the team was just not, I think, ready. But that was such a deflating moment that I almost don't completely blame them for not reacting because it was just such a bad call in my opinion. Like it just that that's a foul. Like I said, 99.9% of the time, and we can blame DeMarco for going down a little weak. But given the way that that's always called, I don't think it was unreasonable for him to expect a foul call there.
Yeah, I gotta agree with Irfan here that that's a foul to me because Lukman was mostly using his hands, not his body, to bring DeMarco down. I can't say that's not a foul, but I wanna bring another angle to this play, that why DeMarco did what he did. I think Çalhanoğlu is the bigger culprit in this play than DeMarco, because that pass wasn't good. That wasn't a smart pass to make in a position where DeMarco was, because Lukman was right there, and I don't know, was Çalhanoğlu expecting DeMarco to smash the ball out of the area or something, but I think DeMarco realized how bad position he's in, so he wanted to just get the foul, but I don't know. I agree that okay, DeMarco, he wasn't playing too smartly there, so he should have smashed the ball out, but yeah, to me that's also a foul, so I can't blame the guys too much, but I think I would blame more Çalhanoğlu for that pass than DeMarco, because that was the moment DeMarco needed to react. That was really fast, and yeah, not happy with the call, but obviously, as I didn't watch the match live, it didn't mean too much to me, because I knew what's gonna happen in the end, so we're gonna win anyway, so it wasn't bothering me too much, but I could guess watching that wasn't a pleasant situation at the time.
Yeah, the announcers, actually, the English announcers, were blaming Hakan a lot more than DeMarco, because of what you said, Miko, that was just a terrible back pass to DeMarco, putting him in a really bad position. So I think other people had that same view. But yeah, I don't know. I still feel DeMarco could have done better, but ultimately it's like that's a call 99.9% of the time, so it's hard for me to get too upset.
I would probably equate this to the Bastoni howler, I think, against Sociedad was it, where Aslani puts him in a horrible position with a bad pass, and Bastoni picked the worst possible option, kind of. Now, I think DeMarco had a little less control of the ball than Bastoni did in his situation, but kind of similar situation where you get a hospital pass and you just kind of make the wrong decision. But refereeing in that game was terrible. Uh, Atalanta had a blatant handball to quote Jay, like Singer Larson style, where the hand was up over the head when it makes contact with the ball, and for a player already on a yellow, he doesn't get sent off. I thought there were a few other like controversial like foul no foul decisions, like so. Irfan, to your points, like I'm not surprised that that was a what we think is maybe a bad call by the referee because he just completely lost the plot of the game. I think in the second half.
Yeah, and I know we should talk about like the Lautaro goal, but even before we get there, like one thing I noticed was, in matches where I go back to that Roma one, in matches where we're struggling to kind of score that decisive goal, it almost feels like, we need to be more direct. Like in that Roma match, it came down to just a brilliant pass by Asani, right? To free up DeMarco, who put in a great cross. And in this match, when everything was like looking really difficult, it was that Hakan pass that kind of split the defense all the way for Darmian, which ended up, resulting in the penalty. So one thing I've noticed though is like I feel like, sometimes when we're getting a little bit too predictable or our build up through the midfield through our usual attacking patterns is too slow, then it really does take like a more direct approach to kind of get the defense from settling down and being prepared for us. And so I know Atalanta was very different setup wise than Roma. Like they weren't, just playing 11 people behind the ball, but I think that they were still prepared for our attack to start that match really well. Like they were basically snuffing us out in the midfield before we could even get into the attacking zone. And then by the time we got into the attacking zone, the defense was completely set. And their central defense, I thought, did pretty well. So it's just one of those things I've noticed where, like, I feel like sometimes we need to just be a little more direct and just faster in our buildup. Like, and I worry about that, especially as the players are putting on a lot more minutes and we're playing a little bit more fatigued because we're playing, twice a week. I think a lot of our matches are going to come down to either like a moment of brilliance, like Lautaro delivers, or like Thuram can deliver. Um, but then also just, some kind of more direct defense splitting, through ball or lob pass or something like that. I think we're going to really need that going forward.
What do you think about our general attacking play over the past few games? Because I feel like we've almost got off a little bit easy. I don't feel like we ever raised our game above like a 6 or 7 against Atalanta or Roma, to be honest. On one hand, that bodes well that we managed to get 6 points without never really playing, great. But it feels like, it's not, I guess, the evidence that you want to see of a chance of a team making chances the way we were in the earlier part of the season. I feel like our fluidity has not been as notable, hasn't been on display as much in recent games. And on one hand, I do like that we have a bit more rigidity to us. On the other hand, what's an Inzaghi team without that kind of attacking spark? I feel like if you don't get the rub of the green, then you might end up with a lot of nil-nils. But so far, we seem to be doing okay.
Well, I felt like Salzburg was the same, like you said, Jay. Like Salzburg, we also struggled, I think, to more kind of potently and effectively attack the other side. So I think there's definitely something to that. I wonder if it's just, people are a little bit more prepared and they're playing better against our usual attacking patterns, or if it's also just a function of the players getting a little bit more tired. So like the whole system, in my opinion, with the passing doesn't work unless there's like really strong kind of 1-2 quick passing play. And if that gets slowed down at all or becomes like too predictable, then I think it is relatively easy to kind of snuff out before it ever gets into a position where it's played out wide, and then we're dangerous. We got midfielders running into the box, and we've got Toro and Thuram doing their thing. So I have noticed that. I think it's been the fluidity has definitely not been there. It's been a little bit harder, but I'm also kind of intrigued by the fact that something we probably haven't had for many, many years. We have some players who can kind of individually make something out of nothing or pull a goal out of nowhere. I mean, that this is probably a good segue to that Lautaro goal. I mean, that was about as good of a goal as I've ever seen him score. I mean, I know we're getting used to it now because he scores so many goals, but that just felt different. It's the kind of goal that, a year ago or a couple of years ago, he probably doesn't score with any regularity. And now it seems like, he's playing so confidently, and he's just being direct. He's like looking for an opening now, the way that, he probably hasn't done previously. It used to just be he would kind of position himself. He would be in a great position to receive the ball. He would look for the best kind of opportunity. But, there was also another play. I don't think it was in that goal play, but there was another play in our buildup where he like dribbled or like he did some like kind of move, like right, to move the ball forward. And you saw like a dribble come out of him, and you're like, whoa, this is something else. I mean, you could tell he's a player who's just playing with so much confidence that he feels like every time he's out there, he can go out and make something happen by himself, either as a playmaker or more likely as a goal scorer.
Yeah, maybe it's some kind of confidence thing. He's like now the number one guy for the team. He's expected to deliver, and he's like doing that and feeling the confidence. And there's hopefully not gonna be this kind of month and a half dry periods like last season. There was like 2 maybe, and so far it doesn't look like that. Quite the opposite. He's like doing the right things most of the, like almost every game. He's not scoring like literally every game, but almost even that. And yeah, it's looking really good at the moment. Lautaro's game, and that goal was like amazing. I don't know if you guys when you were watching the match and Lautaro scored that goal, did you like felt that now the game is in the bag, or how was it?
There was like a 10-minute stretch in the second half leading up to the Lautaro goal where you felt like we had found our footing, and then maybe in the immediate aftermath of the goal, we're like, all right, like we've kind of taken the sting out of their attack. We weathered an early storm, like we're doing all right. And then, honestly, I started losing a little bit of faith. A little bit before the goal, I thought Mkhitaryan had a very poor game, and Barella was hurt / it was a nasty knock Barella picked. But between Barella and Mkhitaryan, the midfield struggled yesterday, I thought. So I wasn't too confident. I wasn't too confident. And then as soon as Atalanta scored, we made the double substitute to take off Mkhitaryan and DeMarco. And I was hoping that would kind of stabilize things, and it didn't. And I was absolutely convinced Atalanta were going to tie this thing up because I was not thrilled with the way we were playing. We struggled to hold on to the ball. Where like Atalanta ended up outpossessing us during the game, and I think there was a good stretch in the second half where we didn't produce any legitimate attacking chances because we could not hold the ball, get up pitch. So I was pretty worried. I don't know about you guys. The only point where I actually felt like, okay, game over, was when Toloi had to make... I think he had to make the foul, but he picked up his second yellow and got sent off. That was really the moment where I finally felt good about the position we were in, because I really felt Atalanta were going to tie up, especially when you have, long time Inter pain in our butts, Luis Muriel coming up the pit on the pitch as a substitute. It never ends well for us.
Yeah, I was terrified by the sight of Muriel coming on. It was just like the most deflating feeling, being utterly convinced that he was coming on to score the equalizer, but thankfully he wasn't able to get too much into the game. And again, I'm commending Darmian majorly for holding our defense together, because I thought, like yourself, that meltdown was almost guaranteed at that point.
Yeah, Darmian, I think, saved our butt a few times, including, towards the end of the match. He made some very critical tackles and helped Summer out. Summer had a really, really good save on a very difficult shot. I know he kind of parried it into the middle, but just making that save was really good. I forgot who shot. I think it might have been Lookman who shot that, but he made a really good save there. So yeah, down the stretch, I agree. I mean, we didn't play well. We definitely looked a little shell-shocked after that goal by Atalanta. But overall, like I said, I feel like it was a win that showed a lot of grit. It showed a lot of heart. I think we played well enough to get a result. Like I said, going into this match, I think this was probably like one of a top 5, 6, 7 hardest fixtures in our schedule. Playing away at Atalanta, I think it's tough. I know we've had good success, but it's a tough game against a tough team on the road. So, happy with the results overall. One other thing I noticed, and I'm curious to get your guys' thoughts, Bastoni was essentially benched for the game, and I don't know if it was because he had a knock or if he was just being rested, but if he was being rested, then, we had a week basically to prepare for this, though I'm sure Inzaghi's looking forward to the Salzburg match. But what I found interesting was I actually thought there were a lot of plays that when we were playing well and we were playing fluid, the ball would kind of end up in an area where we would usually see Bastoni kind of move up and help distribute the ball. Acerbi tried to do that, I think, in some ways, but it's just really quite a fall off in that part of the game. That attacking, kind of supplemental attacking part of the game, it's such a fall off between Bastoni and Acerbi. So I really it reminded me a little bit of how we haven't really seen the best of Bastoni yet this season, but when he's on and if he can kind of find his form again, he can really help us, add another dimension to the attack, because that, DeMarco running down the sidelines and, crossing it in can change into some interplay between Bastoni, which I think would help a lot going forward.
So after the game, Inzaghi said Bastoni was left out as a technical choice, which makes you think it's more about style of play and less about fitness. But there was a point where Acerbi got the ball, maybe galloped 3 to 6 yards forward and blasted a shot with his left foot that, instead of curling towards the nets, it kind of turned into a slice where it ended up, a good 5 feet away from the post. And Lautaro was just staring daggers at him like, what are you thinking for taking that shot?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, those are the situations where you wish Bastoni was on the pitch, because Acerbi's not offering you anything moving forward, in attack.
Yeah, I want to get back to the meltdown part, because this is really interesting. As I said, I wasn't watching the match live, so I knew the result when I was following the match. So the start of the second half, that was to me, that was really good, as Jay mentioned. Or who was it? Anyway, we really got our game going on, and then we scored that goal, and I don't think we had much problems there until we gifted them the goal, or the ref gifted or whatever. So, but after that, to me, when I was watching the match at ease, knowing the result and so on, it didn't felt like we were in total collapse or anything. Atalanta was controlling the ball, and they were trying to create great stuff, but they didn't, in the end, they didn't like manage to get too much going on in our box. How did you guys feel? Because I feel that it was mostly just crosses, and then Skamaka connected some of them, but there wasn't anything great. Maybe that one shot which Summer saved, and there was a rebound, and Skamaka almost got it, and that could have been a good chance, but then Darmian played that very well. Didn't concede the penalty and like cleared the ball. But I don't really remember that they like totally outplayed us at the end of the match. But how was it? Is it just because I knew the result, so I wasn't worried at any point, and then you guys, you were like so worried that they're gonna equalize, so
Yeah,
what's
probably
the real truth? What's the real truth? I don't know.
Truth is probably somewhere in the middle, just as you are a bit more secure watching the match knowing the result. I guess for us, we're probably playing up how, the danger of the situation, watching it live and having some leftover Inter trauma from previous games against Atalanta. Yeah, I'd agree that, they weren't like ultra dangerous, but the game, as these things do, sometimes the game just feels like it's going a certain way. And I guess with that decision or non-decision to allow Skamaka's goal, that changed the tide, and that completely opened what seemed like a relatively shut game at that point, and gave all the impetus to Atalanta. And then on top of that, like I said, Muriel coming on was just the kind of thing you hate to see, So yeah, truth is probably somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I will say this, like watching the match real time, when Lautaro scored that goal, I thought it was over. I thought we were kind of cruised to a nice victory. I knew Atlanta would still push, but I didn't think Atalanta had enough to be able to recoup that. Once they scored that first goal, then I definitely got nervous, because it became very clear, like within a couple minutes after they scored that goal, that we went into that mode where we weren't trying to score at all. Like we were just shifting into defensive mode, and I knew if there was going to be another goal, it was going to be them, not us. But luckily, that didn't end up happening. But I think whenever you're in that situation where you have a one goal lead, and it just blatantly looks obvious that you're not going to score, that makes, I think, the nerves go pretty high, because you're just anticipating whether the other team will be able to break through or not. So I think that was a little nerve wracking. But yeah, I mean, there weren't like super close calls or anything like that. And probably because, Skamaka isn't that great of a striker or anything that gives you so much fear. So that's probably why. Wouldn't you guys agree?
All right. Well, let's take a pause here. First off, he was easily Atalanta's best player yesterday. I mean, come on. A beautiful finish on the goal. I thought he did a great job distributing the ball. There were a few times where he got the ball in the opponent's box, gained control of it, and then put it on a plate, or at least put the ball in a dangerous place for his teammates where they just weren't able to take advantage of it. I was watching the game with my very Italian father, and him and I are both in agreement that, like, Scamacca has it, man. Like, he needs to be the future of the Italian national team. Like, I realize I've a broken record on this, but, like, I don't understand how someone can watch this guy play and not see that, like, this is the most technically gifted Italian striker since Balotelli. Like, it's just so clear, like, the just innate skill he has. I know he has to put it all together still, but I mean, he scored 16 league goals a couple of years ago. He already has, 5 league goals this season. He's probably on pace to put together 10 to 12 league goals. Like, there's something there, and I understand why we missed on him, and it worked out since we got Pavard, but he'd look good in this attack, let me tell you.
Maybe this tells more about the Italian national team than Scamacca.
Fair enough. All right, you guys want to wrap about Salzburg now? Midweek Champions League fixture going to Austria. Of course, we just played Salzburg, so a very top of mind, very fresh. I think we talked about this a couple of episodes ago. This is the easiest match. It should be the easiest match left in the group. This should be 3 points. And if we win here, and if Sociedad beat Benfica, I think we guarantee ourselves a spots in the next, to the knockout stage of the Champions League. Of course, we'd still be playing for seeding, but like a win here pretty much guarantees us a spot in the knockout round. So, fully expecting our best lineup possible. Jay, and any thoughts, any particular decisions you want to see from a lineup standpoint?
I'm kind of seeing the opposite, actually. I mean, it's only admittedly one or two little reports, but I'm hearing that Inzaghi will rotate in this match. That means Sanchez, Fratesi, Bastoni now, and so on, Augusto probably, which I think is a good idea. I think our kind of, I don't want to call it a second lineup, but some of the rotation options we have are able to provide some different weapons, and that's always really exciting for me. For some reason, I like seeing your backups when your backups actually have something to offer, and they're not just vastly inferior versions of your starting players. You know what I mean? So
I'm hearing you're looking forward to seeing Sanchez start.
That's probably the one exception, but more to the others, Fratesi in particular, Augusto. We need to get good value out of these guys, especially with the starters. Like Irfan mentioned, Bastoni has not been at his best yet this season. I would say the same applies for Barella, maybe even DeMarco, despite his good opening to the season. Maybe in games 1 to 4 or games 1 to 5, I think DeMarco was really good, but since then maybe not as good, right? So if Augusto continues to play really well, then that's obviously just tremendous value to us to have a viable, functional second option at that left wing back position, and same principle applies anywhere else on the pitch. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing those guys. Maybe Asllani will start. I think we're seeing Inzaghi trust him a little bit more these days. For example, I was a bit surprised to see Asllani come on yesterday because we were in a purely defensive phase of the game, just trying to hold on and just see out the last 10-15 minutes of the game. And you'd argue that Calhanoglu is a much more physical and ferocious defender than Asllani, right? So for him to take off Calhanoglu, no matter how tired he is, and replace him with Asllani, I think that's a sign of that Inzaghi's level of trust in the player has developed and improved. So yeah, look, as long as we can get some rotation going and we can obviously secure the win, then I'll be happy. I was almost going to say we should see if we can give Bissek some time, just in light of Pavard's injury and what I mentioned earlier, how Pavard's injury kind of, there's a knock-on effect to Pavard's injury. It's not just Pavard is injured. Pavard's injury means that Darmian is a designated right centre-back. That means Darmian is no longer the designated right wing-back backup, right? And that person is Cuadrado, who is still injured or something. So yeah, there's all these little kind of knock-on effects. And if Bissek can play a little bit, in that right centre-back or left centre-back position, then that's, again, a small but I think notable kind of contribution, and that would be really valuable to us at this point in time.
Yeah, I agree with you with your rotation talk that it would be good to see some rotation there. As for the match itself, I think Salzburg was Well, for me, they were better at Meazza than I expected them to be. So I don't think this will be an easy match, but I think we will handle it because now we know better how the opponent will play. At least I hope they like adjusted their expectations how Salzburg will play. So I expect Salzburg to come at us like they did at Meazza and like try actually play the game now that they are at home. So they will definitely do that. So yeah, I don't think this will be an easy match like it wasn't the first time. I think do you guys remember, was Fratesi and Augusto starting the first Salzburg match?
I'm researching this one live for you. So, Fratesi started over Barella, Augusto started over DeMarco, and Sanchez started next to Lautaro in attack. So those are kind of the extents of the substitutions in the first leg. And I agree, like Augusto is the one guy I really want to see start because DeMarco had a pretty bad game yesterday, and I think we've talked previously that he's been a little disappointing this season, so I'd be cool giving Augusto the starts. Mkhitaryan was pretty poor yesterday. I'd be fine if you wanted to start Fratesi over him. But Barella, that injury he picked up, honestly was pretty scary looking in real time, so I'm good with either there. I'd be cool to start Asllani over Hakan. He might be asking a lot of him in this situation, but if you're going to start him, I'd almost rather do it here than against Frosinone because, and let me know if you guys disagree with this, it's safer to drop points here against Salzburg when you have 2 home matches in the group stage left than it is to drop points against Frosinone where, frankly, Juve are on our heels. And it just feels like such a tight league race that you can't afford to drop points. So,
well, you've got some excited Interisti in the crowd, desperate to see a good result. You can't drop points at Frosinone.
Yes, my dream would come true if for those of you listening at home, Miko, Irfan, and I will be at the Frosinone match. Nothing I want to see more than Sanchez start so we can, be able to watch him dominate the midfield.
Yeah, let's pass on that. But no, I agree. I think this will be a little bit harder than we probably anticipate. But I do think we'll be more prepared. I felt like that first match was a bit of a wake-up call for Inzaghi, that this team isn't something that we should just kind of brush aside and overlook. So I think our guys will be prepared. We'll come out. I think we'll play pretty well. But I agree. I would rather see us kind of start with some second string guys, and then if it's not working or, when we need a boost, then, at the 60th minute, 55th, whatever, 65, 70 minute, we kind of sub in the starters to give us that final push. I think that's probably a better result than trying to start everybody again, knowing that we have a match in, 4 days afterward.
Actually, our Benfica match is away match, so there's no 2 home matches left. But yeah, I still...
Yes, good correction, thank you.
Yeah, but would still rotate in this one, especially that it's in the middle of these league matches, obviously. So yeah.
Random interjection about Bisek, and I know I'm the one who mentioned him to begin with, but I just wanted to point out something I read about the guy the other week. It was from his interview, I think about 2 or 3 months ago. It was quite a while back, but I heard something that I thought was worth sharing and that I thought was an interesting insight into the way he's thinking. Basically, the guy said after his first training session, he kind of gave up any hope of playing because he identified that the level that everyone else was just, exactly levels above him, and that he knew that from there on, his first season was going to be dedicated purely to learning. It's not often you see, young players kind of have that level of self-awareness. So I think it bodes well, He said Inter believes in him, which is why they gave him a long contract. I would say that Inter give everyone long contracts. But I'm keen to see him. I think now with Pavard's injury, we can, or I would like to see, that blotting accelerated a little bit. I mean, he has played here and there, but, they're always garbage minutes. I think he got done really badly once. Other than that, he's, hasn't played enough to really show anything one way or the other. So I think the one thing he does seem to offer is a bit of pace and a bit of physicality, because the guy is huge. But yeah, the more and more I just look through like our fixture list, the more and more I feel like there is an opportunity to give him, a little bit of time. So Forza Bisek.
Yeah,
give Bisek a chance.
Yeah, I was gonna say I agree. I think now with the Pavard injury, it's the perfect time to start to integrate him a little bit. He has obvious skill. Like when the few moments that he has played, he hasn't looked terrible. It's a difficult position, obviously, but I think they can make the position a little bit easier for him by maybe taking some of the attacking play out of it and having him stay home a little bit more. So I think they can do things to make it easier. And the fact that he would be playing with solid veterans in the back line and at goal, I think would help him a lot. So I agree with you, Jay. I think it'd be interesting to see. I think he has the physical prowess and the tools to be successful, and it'd be nice to see him get some chances that aren't super high pressure chances. I mean, the last thing you want to do is be forced to sub him in a very critical match because Darmian picks up an injury or something like that. You'd rather have him kind of integrated here and there in situations that are more favorable to you, to get him kind of the match play and the speed and the timing and all that stuff down.
So Bisek and Aslani and Sanchez starting against Frosinone, right?
I don't mean necessarily against Frosinone. I just mean, instead of giving him 1 minute every, 5 games, let's give him 2 minutes every 5 games. No, I'm kidding. You get what I'm saying. Just increase his minutes, give him 15 minutes at the end of this game, then maybe in a game or two, give him half an hour at the end of the game, something like that. Just, I think when I think you have to have a serious plan to launch a player. And so, look, at the end of the day, if Inzaghi has no plans of launching him, then there's no point. The whole discussion is kind of moot. But if we can, if he's worth launching, then let's do it. The last thing I want to see is that right flank being run down to the bone, because Dumfries on his last legs is nightmare material for me. Like I said, just watching him against Atalanta was bad. There were so many moments where, for example, someone would pass to him, and someone like a fresh player anticipates the ball is going out on the touchline, so I will react, just a split second earlier, nip in there and stop the ball from going out. But Dumfries was too tired to even do that. You guys might remember the moment I'm speaking to, but there was just these little moments throughout the end of the game with little giveaways like that, indications that this guy is tired, and that even though we kind of see Dumfries as just this, immovable object, or this, unstoppable tank, we still need to manage his usage pretty carefully, especially with Darmian also playing 90 minutes from here on out, and with Cuadrado being apparently completely useless. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've watched Bisek play 2 minutes of football in my life, and those were the first 2 minutes of his Inter career as a substitute in the first match of the season, so I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I have a good understanding of his abilities, but I think he can be a Skriniar-like player, just from a physicality standpoint. It seems like he has a little bit of that natural tenacity to him. He has a really imposing build. I don't know. I assume he has not played much at all because he's not ready and he's raw. But at least those quotes you presented, Jay, show he has, he's aware of, that he needs work. And like you said, if Pavard's really out to 8 weeks, we don't really have anyone else who can fill in that position besides Darmian. I'd rather not play De Vrij out of position as a right center back. That's just a recipe for disaster. So let's hope we can be pleasantly surprised. And it's like Asllani, where it's like you take a player who's maybe not super ready for a role, but you give them minutes, you let them, you give them the confidence that if they fail, they'll still be available to play. They're not going to be benched for the rest of their lives if they make a mistake. And maybe you end up developing the player a bit more than you would if you took him and loaned him out to, insert random Serie B club who is going to, let him sit on the bench for the better part of January through May. So there might be a good opportunity here.
While they play some 38-year-old journeyman who you're surprised to learn is even still playing.
Yeah, it's like he'll be benched in favor of Cristiano Maggio, and you're going to be wondering, like, that guy's still relevant and still alive. But it will be done as the team fights for, the seventh spots in the Serie B playoff.
Speaking of which, is Agume still on our squad, or did he end up going out on loan?
He's
Pretty
still
sure
in our
he's
squad.
here.
He was on the bench yesterday. Let's give him a chance.
Is that a hill you're still dying on slowly, Jay? Or are you?
Look, I tend to just find hills at will to die on. So I can't remember, to be honest. But yeah, let's say I'm still pro Agume. Would still like to see him given a chance. I still think there's value in his game. And who was the other guy I was supporting? Bissek. Let's go for him as well.
Young Sar,
Young Agume, and young, I don't know Bissek's first name.
Now, I was going to say, so Jay wants to turn this thing to Football Manager and have a starting lineup of all people under the age of 22.
Why not?
All right.
Just on that, don't you think? I did see someone comment about, even Allegri, even motherfucking Allegri is playing, or had to dip into the youth team and get these nobodies like Fagioli and Miretti and Sule and Illing Jr. You know what I mean? And it seems like it just seems our guy, who is a former youth coach, just seems so unwilling to give anyone younger a chance. Like, who's the youngest guy in our squad who's actually who's the youngest player in our squad who's actually like a relied upon member of the team? It might actually
Asllani.
be Bastoni. No,
Asllani.
It's hard to say Asllani is really relied on.
Frattesi.
Frattesi's 24, you know what I mean? So, these guys are not... we don't have anyone who's, sub 23 and, contributing on a regular basis. And it's not only for the sake of it that I bring it up. I just, I noticed that even the big teams these days seem to find young value, whereas we just seem incapable of really embedding anyone young into the team.
We've developed one youth player in the last 15 years.
So I've said we've developed Bastoni, but yeah, I guess I know what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, I give Conte a lot of credit for giving Bastoni a chance when few other Italian managers would. I meant mostly from the Primavera standpoint, where DeMarco's our only academy graduate with any sort of staying power.
Even DeMarco was, he developed not at Inter. He had multiple loan spells at... Where was he? He was at Empoli, then Parma, then Verona on the Juric. So yeah, even him, it's kind of hard to claim.
He's been a surprise. I actually thought for the longest time that Biraghi was going to be way better than him, but yeah.
I think everyone agrees, I have the least favorable opinions of DeMarco of this group, but we can save that conversation for another day. Want to talk about Frosinone and the last Serie A match before another international break? It's always hard to cap matches that are 2 outs because there's so much that can happen between now and then. What I will tell you is that Frosinone have actually had a pretty good start to the season. They were playing surprisingly well. They were a firm top half of the table team, and then they went and blew a 3-0 lead to Cagliari last weekend, I believe. But they righted the ship midweek. They picked up a win against Torino in the Coppa. It looks like they play Empoli tomorrow for the Monday evening fixture. You'd expect them to win that. They're going to be at home against pretty much the worst team in the league. So I don't know. Like Frosinone is a solid mid-table team to start the year. They've statistically their defense is poor. Like they've given up more goals than most teams given their position in the table, but they have a pretty lethal attack where they've scored a lot. So I have not watched Frosinone yet this year, I don't think. I'm trying to just filter through the fixture list and see if I've seen any of these games. None of them are really drawing any impressions in my mind, but just by looking at kind of the statistics behind them, they have an impressive win over Atalanta. They were able to beat Sassuolo. Like, this is a dangerous team. This is definitely not a relegation candidate, I think.
Hard disagree. I think they're just some relegation shitters who are having a decent start to the season. I think they'll be in the relegation battle in no time, to be honest. And I think you occasionally get these teams who, have a bright spark and then go on some insane 25-match losing streak. I wouldn't be surprised to see Frosinone kind of plummet towards, the bottom end of the table from January onwards. And it's always the case with these relegation teams or teams that have come up from Serie B, where it seems like any good form or any bad form can just hit them at a moment's time, and the good form that they go through can be so precarious. I don't expect Frosinone to remain in Serie. If they do, it'll be by the grace of teams like Empoli and Salernitana.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but look at the teams at the bottom of this league. Salernitana have 4 points. Cagliari has 1 win this year. Udinese did not have a single win this year until yesterday when they beat Milan. Verona have lost 4 matches in a row. It's going to take a biblical collapse by Frosinone to go down.
I don't think so. I mean, it's still only 8 points gap. I mean, 12 points is what they're on now. Generally, teams are safe at 33. You know what I mean? So I guess that they're, somewhat on par to make that, arbitrary kind of safety zone. But I don't know. I think when you get to I think when it gets to that relegation battle, that kind of Serie A prestige does play a role. So, the staying power of a team tends to show itself at the end of the day. Let's just say hypothetically that, someone you mentioned, Udinese, right? 4 draws in a row followed by a win against Milan. But let's just say hypothetically that Udinese get pulled down into a relegation battle. I think that when push comes to shove, the fact that they've been in Serie A for 20 plus years is going to make the difference between them and Frosinone, should it come down to it. Likewise, Cagliari, you'd say that Cagliari obviously a team with more Serie A prestige than Frosinone. Salernitana, yeah, they're a good pick to go down. Maybe their time is up, but Frosinone, I don't think so. I think they're going to be plummeting down pretty soon. I think the teams like Torino and Genoa, Sassuolo, Udinese, Verona, who are beneath them, all going to kind of straighten up a little bit at least.
Yeah, I haven't watched Frosinone, but I've noticed this Matias Soule, this Juventus loanee guy. He has in 8 matches he has 1 assist and 5 goals. He's like a winger or forward or something. I think he's been pretty good recently. He's played like in the past 5 games he's been playing 90 minutes. So, and I don't know, he's only 20. So we should have also these kind of players in our like lists, but doesn't look like that at the moment.
Well, Samardzic could have been that player, but we all know how that ended. I will say the one thing that's interesting to me is Frosinone, like you mentioned, has gotten off to a pretty good start. It'll probably be like a super exciting match, probably one you definitely want to be in the stadium to witness and experience live. It'll probably be like among the best experiences of just pure football that you'll ever see. So I think anyone who's in that stadium is going to be pretty lucky, just saying. But one thing I will also say is Frosinone, Jay, only has one more loss than a certain team that shares our city. Just putting it out there. They've lost 4, and the vaunted Milan team has lost 3.
I understand what's happening now. We're being gaslit by Jay. He is, jealous and upset that he's not able to attend the match next weekend, and as a result, he's trying to turn Frosinone into relegation fodder.
Yeah, downplay Frosinone. That's right.
I guess. Well, while Irfan's bringing up our, podcast favorite team, Milan, any just thoughts on the Scudetto race? Milan have obviously dropped a lot of points. We've got a bit of a I wouldn't say comfortable, but we have a larger lead over them. Juve played today against Fiorentina. Any thoughts from the group about the way the Scudetto race is shaping up?
The last 3 games were great for us. Milan picked up 1 point. We picked up 9, so that was just fantastic. Juve, I remember we were talking about this midweek, saying, or you were arguing that, I'm telling you, Juve's going to be there to the end. I get why you say that, and, my brain kind of tells me the same thing, but I just can't get over just how fucking bad they are at football, They just played so badly, and it's not the same level of bad as they used to be, where they play badly but get some shitty 1-0 result, thanks to some magic. They play even worse than they did back then, and they have less magic to bail them out. So I just can't see them, I just don't think they have the same resources to put up a Scudetto challenge. And the final thing I'll say about Frosinone and relegation, all that kind of stuff, is based on something I noticed about our own standing. I was looking at the table, and I was like 9-1-1. That's obviously very good. 27 goals scored, 6 against. Fantastic. But I've seen, I swear we've been like 16-2 and still somehow not won the league. I think it was Spalletti's first season where we went into the second half of the season. Yes, at some kind of record, like 16 wins and 2 draws or something like that. So 9-1-1, 11 games. It's not that far into the season. And again, the same reason I mentioned that is just to touch up upon like the whole relegation battle. 11 games, 10 games is, it's not that much. We're not that far into the season. It feels like we're further along into the season than we actually are. But yeah, just like Frosinone, I don't see Juventus kind of managing to maintain this level.
Yeah, but I gotta mention Milan here. I watched yesterday's match, and honestly, they look poor. Really, really fucking terrible. I think they are like purely like dependent on Lea and Giroud making anything for them. If those guys like don't deliver, they don't have anything in their game. I think honestly that Pioli might be sacked during the season if he doesn't find something in their game. They look really, really bad at this moment, and these results, they had the PSG PSG loss, and then this one, and now they're gonna be playing PSG again. And if they're gonna lose that, I don't know. It might be pretty bad for Pioli. He's gonna feel the heat pretty soon, if not already.
They've got some injuries. Like yesterday, Pulisic didn't play, and I think they started Jovic up top with Giroud, which is a sight to behold. Teo didn't play either. Like, I can see why they struggled yesterday. But just to Jay's point about Juve, like, there's going to be a point where, like, this Champions League, like, not having midweek fixtures, like, really comes to be an advantage. And I just imagine, like, it being in February when we're stuck traveling to England midweek and they're at home resting ahead of, like, a big match against, I don't know, I'll just pick on Bologna. Like, it's going to be an advantage at some point, and all I'm saying is the longer they stay in the race, the longer they keep it close, the more that this, like, lack of European competition advantage is going to settle in. And I don't know what the financial situation's like. I imagine they don't have money to, like, go out and buy someone in the winter window, much like we don't. So they have a pretty large squad already, and I don't know. I guess my point is that I think that the advantage they have is going to be only more accretive as we get further and further into the season, assuming our team doesn't implode and crash out of the Champions League.
Yeah, I want to mention that we're going to fight against Juve, who won't have these midweek games or at all these midweek games. But then if Milan also crashes out of Europe completely, they won't have those games in the winter or spring at all either. So then we would have to fight against these kind of teams. So that's a bit of a concern for me, given that Pioli finds the game again, his game or like something, because now it's not working. But yeah, regarding this lack of midweek games, at least for Juve, but maybe for Milan as well, that's a bit of a concern for me, I must admit.
Yeah, and Juventus have been doing this without, like, getting the best out of their players. Like, I don't think Chiesa has been that good so far, and I don't think that even Vlahovic has been that great so far. So they've been, in typical Allegri fashion, grinding out these, thoroughly ugly, almost undeserved wins, and that's keeping them afloat. And I think there's two things that make them a threat, even though when you watch them play, you're just completely and utterly unimpressed. One of them is what you all mentioned, which is that they don't have those midweek matches. The other thing is that they could be like the shittiest club in the world and still beat us, right? I mean, they have this mental edge over us where that they could be in horrible form, missing like all their key players, and someone like Fagioli or some other total scrub will come out and just score against us, and they'll get a draw or they'll get a win against us when we're a vastly superior team. So, I think knowing that we can't count on two good results against them, coupled with the fact that they have these midweek, rest periods because they're not playing, and like, let's face it, Allegri's done it before. He has the bona fides to, like, pull off these, like, just completely ugly, disastrous, 1-0 wins. And so I think they'll be a threat. I think they'll be there. Like Jay mentioned, as much as I love reveling in Milan's demise, it's way too soon. It's only been 11 matches. Like, they don't look that great yet either. But we kind of anticipated that they had a lot of new players and it was going to take them some time to kind of find their groove and get integrated. So, I wouldn't be surprised if they hit a good stretch later on, whether it's with Pioli or not. And then also with Napoli, like, Napoli have the second best offense in the league. Their defense has struggled so far this year a little bit. But I don't think you can rule them out either, because, they're just a team that knows kind of how to do it. I have a lot of questions about their their manager, like we kind of addressed going into the season, but their players are starting to play better, and they clearly have talent. So it's too early to write them off either. But I don't think anyone else has really shown that much. I think it'll come down to those 4 teams, and I think it'd be really hard for anyone to say that we're not the favorite. And that puts a certain amount of pressure on us, but I think we have to deliver.
Well, it's going to be a great Scudetto race, and hopefully we can get the second star before our cousins across the city. I think this is probably a good point to wrap it up. Like we've mentioned a couple times throughout the episode, some of us are going to be at the game next weekend. If any of you are also going to the game, feel free to reach out to us, via the forum, via email. The email is inter.jections.pod@gmail.com. You can also DM us on Twitter or whatever, and just let us know. Happy to meet or hang out with any of you guys if you want to say hi at the match. Otherwise, you can look forward to our, maybe a first ever in-person recording next week, and hopefully we'll have 3 points to talk about. So thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Yeah,
everyone.
Catch you later.
Thank you.